Good morning. Well, maybe good afternoon. Today is Saturday, January 13th. So blessed that the Lord has allowed me to see another day. So, what I decided that I wanted to do today was I wanted something sweet, and it's cold outside, so I won't be going out this weekend. I decided to make some cinnamon rolls. So, with that being said, I'm going to make some butter pecan cinnamon rolls. So, let's get started. So, I've measured my ingredients out, but we'll go through those. So, what I have here is 2 teaspoons of dry active yeast. Make sure that when you're using yeast, you always check the date on it to make sure it has not expired, because if your yeast is dead, your cinnamon rolls will be dead as well. There will be no rise. I have a teaspoon of granulated sugar. Sugar acts as an activator or food for the yeast. So I'm going to combine the yeast and sugar together. I have 1 cup of milk. I use 2% milk, but if you have whole milk, you can use that. I'm only going to pour half a cup into the yeast and sugar mixture, and I'm going to set this aside and let this bloom. And when I say bloom, it'll start to foam up after a while. So once you mix your yeast and sugar together, just kind of stir it until it's dissolved, and then just let it go. And if your yeast is active, it'll start foaming up. If your yeast is dead after maybe, I would say maybe after 5-6 minutes, your yeast mixture still hasn't bloomed or foamed up, then your yeast is probably no good. I wouldn't waste my other ingredients making these from scratch. You could either go to the store and buy, some yeast that's active and not expired, but I wouldn't waste my other ingredients. If I do is I have 3 cups here of all-purpose flour, and I'm using my KitchenAid. I'm gonna go ahead and take this dough hook off until I get everything incorporated. So I'm going to incorporate this in here. I have let me go ahead. I might as well put this back on. And this is a really good, soft, delicious cup of sugar that I've measured out that I'm going to go ahead and add to this. I've made these before. My family loves them. So I have that. I added a 4th teaspoon of salt. I had it in with my flour, so you need a little salt to bring this, to tone the sugar down. So I only used a 1/4 cup. I have 4 egg yolks, not the egg whites, but the yolks. Get all that out. That yolk is going to make it soft and rich. And I have 3 ounces of butter. 3 ounces of butter is equivalent to about 6 tablespoons of butter. Make sure that it's melted. I have the remainder of this milk. Now I do have a little extra flour on the side just in case, because with this dough, it depends on how the temperature is, the weather outside, as well as the temperature on the inside of your house. You may have to use a little bit more, but you don't want to make it overly dry, and you don't want it to be too sticky. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start. I have my dough hook because my dough hook is going to be the one that needs this. This other 1/2 cup of milk that I have, I'm going to go ahead and add it in here. And the milk, you want the milk to be warm, not cold. Warm, not too hot, but warm. Warm to the touch. These are going to be so good. Yeah, and I can already tell by the dough that it's a little bit stickier than I want it. I'm going to try to move this over here. Not exactly sure. So I'm going to add just a tad bit of flour because it's not too bad, but I would say maybe, let me do it with a tablespoon so I can tell you. Maybe a heaping tablespoon. Maybe 2 heaping tablespoons. And then when I pull this out, you'll get to see. But don't forget, you still got to add your yeast. And you can see my yeast is starting to bloom. So I know that the yeast is alive and well. But you see that on top. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this yeast in, this yeast mixture with another tablespoon. Well, I can see that it's coming. As you can see. It shouldn't be too sticky, but this is still more stickier than I wanted. So far I've used 3 cups and I've used 4 tablespoons. And this is tablespoon number 5, and I'm sure that'll probably be it. I'm gonna stop my mixer for a minute and scrape down the side. And you see how the dough is. It's not as sticky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this KitchenAid knead this. Now you can knead it manually if you want. If you're kneading it manually by hand, you will probably need to knead it maybe 7 or 8 minutes. But if you're kneading it, you know, through your stand mixer, maybe 4 or 5 minutes will do. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this kneaded, and then I'll come back. All right, so I took the dough out of the mixer, and I'm putting a little flour on top, and I'm going to go ahead and knead it a little bit on the counter myself. As you can see, it's a really beautiful dough. It's real soft. It's going to make wonderful, wonderful cinnamon rolls. I'll move that back so you can see the dough. And when you're kneading, you're just bringing it in, pushing it out, bringing it in, pushing it out. And the next process will be to let this rest. And you pretty much know when you've kneaded your dough enough. Once your dough, if it doesn't stick to your hands, you pretty much know that you've kneaded it pretty good. This is so beautiful, so beautiful and soft. So let me get a pan to put this in so I can cover it and let it proof. Okay, so I have a pan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray this pan. You want to always oil your pan because you don't want your dough to stick to it. And I'm just going to flip it over and make sure it's oiled on all sides. And I'm going to put a towel over this dough and sit it in the oven because that's the warmest spot in my house. I'm going to let this proof for about an hour and a half. And once it's proof, the dough will probably be double in size. It should be double in size. And we'll come back with our next steps. All right, so my dough has proofed for an hour and a half. So this is what it looks like. It's doubled in size. Take my dough out. And I'm going to get ready to roll this out. So the first thing I try to do is, let's see, I try to put it in a triangle, at least a triangle, form it into, look at me, a triangle, a rectangle, sorry. Form it into a rectangle. That makes it easier. This dough is beautiful, y'all. So once you kind of form it in a rectangle, makes it a little bit easier to roll out. Now, I'm not going to bake all of these. I'm only going to bake about 4. These are very easy to freeze, so that's what I'm going to actually do with the rest of them. The ones that I'm going to bake, I'm going to let them proof again once I put in my filling and everything, because I'm gonna make sticky buns with the ones that I bake. And the ones that I don't bake, that I'm going to put in the freezer, I'm not going to let them proof again. I'm just going to make my roll, and then put them in a pan, set them in the freezer, and let them get hard. Once they get hard, tomorrow I'll put them in a Ziploc and just put them in the freezer. And when you want one, you just take it out and let it proof. Then you let it sit out and proof, and it'll double in size. And then you bake it. So I'm not going to have the ones that I freeze proof again. Only the few that I'm going to bake today will I allow them to proof again. So I have butter. I know I'm going to need more than this, but a lot of people like to melt their butter. I think it works better for me when I just let the butter get softened and I put it on here this way. Because it seems like when you dang, trying to match that down. Seems like when you melt it that way, it seems like it runs off too much. And I'm trying to keep everything. So that's why I like it. I like the butter to be pretty much room temperature, and that way you can just spread it on here. It works better for me, but again, that's for me. May not be for you. So I'm going to use about a cup. So these are going to be sticky rolls. I'm going to, I made a sauce not long ago, and I had some stored in my refrigerator. So the ones that I baked today, I'm actually going to put that sauce in the bottom of the pan. It's a buttered pecan sauce. And I did not have enough dark brown sugar, so I'm going to finish it with light brown. The difference between dark and light brown sugar is that it's more molasses. So, let me see if I can use my spatula. I don't want to put a hole in my dough, so that's why I'm using the spatula to kind of mash it down. Just gonna eye it, but I'm just telling you, maybe about a tablespoon. But if you like cinnamon, you can always add a little bit more. So, what I was going to do with mine is I've already, I have some pecans that I've already toasted up. I wanted to put some pecans in them. Okay. So, all right, let me get to trying to get this rolled up. So, what you do is you lift up the edges like that. And get this. Bring a little bit more over here to the side. And the thing about it, I'll probably be trimming that part off once I get them rolled up. But let's get these rolled up first. So we're going to start by rolling it. And you want to roll these tight. And if you've never rolled them before, just take your time. So you pull, roll, pull, roll, pull, roll, pull, roll, pull, roll, pull. This dough is simply beautiful. It is so soft. And I tell you, nothing is better than then what I'm going to do is take that end and stretch it over my log. I'll press it down so that it seals it. Roll it over like that. Kind of pat it out. Kind of, squeeze it. Not squeeze it, but kind of move it around so that your filling is. And that is my roll. So the next thing that I'm going to do is The ones that I'm going to freeze, I'm going to put them in a pan and transfer those to the freezer. Like I said, I don't need to let those proof again because when I get ready to bake those, I have to take them out in advance and let them proof then. But the ones that I am about to bake, I'm going to put them in a little pan, and I'm going to heat up a little bit of this sauce that I made, this butter pecan sauce, and put it in my pan. So give me a minute, and I'll show you where I'm going with this. Before I pop this in the microwave to heat it up, this is my butter pecan sauce that I made. It is loaded with pecans and butter and brown sugar. So I'm going to heat it up, and then I'm going to put it in this pan, and I'll show you. All right, so I just heated this up. This is my sauce. So these are the ones that I'm going to bake. This is one of those little small pans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour this butter pecan sauce in this pan like this. And I'm going to I'm probably only going to put 4 in here. 4 cinnamon rolls in here, and then I'm going to cover them up, put them back in the oven, and let them rise. So this is the sauce. And what will happen is once they rise, the sauce will be on the bottom. So when I turn them out of the pan, the sauce will be on top. Sort of like a pineapple upside down cake, but this is not a pineapple upside down cake. So give me a second. All right. So I just have an empty pan that I'm going to put the other ones in that I'm going to put into the freezer. So the way that you cut it, you can use dental floss. A lot of people use dental floss because that makes a good cut. But if you're going to use dental floss, make sure you have the plain dental floss, not the kind with mint. I don't have any plain, so I'm going to go ahead and use this. So what you do is you cut this roll. You're going to cut this in half. So that's like the halfway point. And then you're going to cut the halves in half. You know what? I did that wrong. I didn't cut that right. That's okay. And then you're going to cut the halves of the halves in half. And then you're going to cut those halves in half. So, but that's how it's going to go. And since I didn't do it like that all the way, at least I told you how to do it. So, these are the cinnamon rolls. So what I do is this little part, I always roll that, put that under the bottom. So this is the pan that I'm going to bake, and I mash it down. So I close that and I mash it down. And I may be able to get 5 out of this. And the thing about it, you're going to let these rise. Remember, I'm only going to do 4 because they're going to double in size. These are going to go into the oven to proof. So I mash them down. What you want to do, you want to mash them down because they are going to double in size. So these are the ones that I'm going to put back in the oven. I'm going to leave these in the oven for about an hour, and these will proof. And before I bake them off, I will actually show you what it looks like. All right, guys, so these are the 4 that I'm going to bake. As you can see, they have doubled in size. They are beautiful. So I have my oven preheating to 350. I'm going to get these baked off. Just trying to make sure I close them up really good. Get these baked off. Normally takes about 20 minutes to get these baked off. And you see my sauce at the bottom. Oh my God, my pecan sauce, my butter pecan sauce. These are going to be so good. So, got the oven preheating. Once the oven has preheated, the bell goes off. I'll put them in the oven, and I'll let you see what they look like when I take them out. But this is what they look like going in. Yum. So here's the final product of the ones that I baked. This is what they look like. And the butter pecan sauce is on the bottom. So what I'm about to do is flip them over. And this is the butter pecan sauce. So I hope you'll try this recipe and let me know what you think about it. If you have any other recipes that you'd like me to try, let me know. Send me the recipe. If you don't have a recipe, send me the name and I'll try to find a recipe. Until then, be blessed. You've got to try this.